me this opportunity. Madam Speaker, I want to indicate at the onset that some of the issues that we are raising here for some people may sound like abstract ideas.
I joined Parliament during or immediately after the post-election violence. Madam Speaker, I was part of a humanitarian committee for my party, ODM, that documented cases of post-election violence. Madam Speaker, I remember documenting cases of young girls in school uniform who had been shot by the police. I remember a woman who had the husband's head decapitated and had to carry the head to Kisumu. Madam Speaker, I remember people from Kisii who were displaced. Madam Speaker, I remember people who are from central Kenya but in the diaspora who are displaced. We went to a specific camp where people were all displaced, but they were in different camps. There was a camp that had predominantly the Kikuyus, and then there was a camp that had the Luos, Luyas, and the Kisis. They were all with the same problem, but for ethnic reasons, they had been balkanized. Madam Speaker, I know that the country is in a mood for politicking. And you know, and the tragedy in Kenya is we start politicking a day after elections. And for a stranger who would be visiting Kenya, you would actually think that the presidential elections are in 2 days' time. Madam Speaker, there's nothing wrong with that because Kenya is a fairly democratic country. But it is extremely unfortunate, Madam Speaker, if we can use language that would incite ethnic animosity and ethnic violence, that would create the kind of violence that we saw. Madam Speaker, the people who suffer in situations like that are women and children. Many women were raped and to date have not been compensated. Many children were killed. Madam Speaker, there's a young girl who has written a book which she gave to me, Madam Speaker. And in her book, she has documented that there were young children who were playing somewhere in the Rift Valley. And they were neighbors of all tribes. And her book is called Hop, Skip and Jump. She was called Scholastic as somebody. Madam Speaker, she documents how she changed from being an innocent child to looking at her neighbors from a tribal lens. She was raped, she underwent violation, and she lost her childhood. Madam Speaker, there are things we cannot afford to joke with or play with. Madam Speaker, I would want to encourage the Deputy President, former Deputy President, that I know is feeling very bitter at the way things stand around. Madam Speaker, he feels that he actually fought and brought this government into power. And I'm sure it can feel very bad when you feel that you brought the government into power, and now you are the one who is outside watching from Viusasa. Madam Speaker, the way to go about it is not through bitterness and anger,
because there's a point that leadership becomes beyond you. I know he's only served one term in Parliament, so he may not understand. And half a term as a Deputy President. But Speaker, there is always opportunities. Let him relax because he says he's a man of God, or at least he says his wife Dorcas is a woman of God. Let them appeal to God and use their godly words to bring unity to the country. There are things we don't joke around with, Madam Speaker. There are things we don't politic around with. And one of them is the peace and security of this country. In terms of sharing and having views and going around and talking to people, that's all very well. Kenya is a democratic country. But let's not ever dream about what happened in 2008. I know it was not in this Parliament, but some of us who are here went through post-traumatic stress disorder. And with those few remarks, I beg that we change our language.